joining us today. We're delighted to be here and share information on the incredible childcare progress that's being made in Vermont right now and how it benefits you and your staff. So we'll run through quickly our agenda, but we'll give a little bit of a landscape update on the state of childcare in Vermont, what the childcare campaign is all about, and the work we've been doing with Let's Grow Kids, Act 76, which was our historic legislative progress made in 2023, and what that means for you and how you can support your teams in accessing affordable quality childcare. We will have time at the end for a deeper Q&A session, and Emily is our resident expert in the state for the expansion of childcare financial assistance. We call it CCFAP, so we're not saying the same 5 words over and over again. But if there is anything in the moment that would help with clarity, feel free to reach out with questions, add it to the chat, or speak out in the group. And like Sarah said, we will share materials afterwards as well that you can use for follow-up, include in onboarding materials, however they best serve your needs. So these numbers are thankfully changing and we're doing a lot, but before COVID-19, we were really seeing a childcare crisis in Vermont. It is not unique to this state. Nationally, we are seeing an incredible crisis in access to birth to 5 care. And that meant here that 3 out of 5 of Vermont's youngest children lacked access to childcare. Meanwhile, families were paying upwards of 40% of their household income on childcare, and early educators were not making livable wages. It was a broken system and one that was not going to ever meet the needs of our communities. COVID really laid this bare, and Let's Grow Kids has been working for the last 10 years on the solution, which is policy change and long-term sustainable public investment. This is national best practice, and Vermont is now really leading the charge on this solution. And Act 76 is a great example of that. And we'll talk a bit about the progress that we've made to address this state of childcare crisis. Let's Grow Kids is the nonprofit leading Vermont's childcare campaign. We are a movement of over 40,000 Vermonters, that's about 6% of our state's population, who are calling for change and for this public investment. When we talk about access to affordable quality childcare, what we mean is that 100% of families have childcare for their children in birth to 5 pre-kindergarten that meets their needs. So a mixed delivery system of home-based programs, center-based programs, and school-based programs across our state, eliminating childcare deserts where folks are commuting an hour each way to get their kids to care before driving to their offices. When we set our goal for affordability, it was that no family spends more than 10% of their household income on childcare. We are not there yet, but as you'll see, we're making really great progress towards that goal. And quality is really about the early childhood educators who are doing this essential work. Without an early childhood education field that is well supported, well compensated, and respected and recognized for the critical work they play in our society and the professional work they're doing, we won't have the supply of childcare we need. We won't be able to support kids to thrive and be prepared for school. So this is what we've been working towards, and I'm really excited to share a little bit about Act 76. As many of you hopefully know, in 2023, Vermont's legislature made history by passing Act 76, which includes long-term sustainable public investment in this birth to 5 system. It's funded in part through the child care contribution, which is the payroll tax, and investment from the general fund. And we started implementation as soon as the bill passed, and it's working. We're seeing more childcare come online. We're seeing more families get access to childcare financial assistance. And to color that in a little bit for you, on the affordability front, what Act 76 did was expand income eligibility for PCFAP from 350% of the federal poverty level to 575%, making our financial assistance program the most expansive in the nation. That 575% is about $180,000 a year for a family of four in 2024. We also increased eligibility for full tuition assistance up to 175%. So about $52,000 a year. Families are paying nothing for childcare, which makes it much easier to make the decision to stay in their work, to afford housing, to save for the future. This expansion has been really transformational for Vermont families and in turn Vermont's economy. When looking at accessibility, we did a lot of work to support, and Luann's going to give some of these examples. Childcare expansion, so how we're supporting programs to grow, to improve quality. A big part of that was reimbursement rates. So programs are now getting higher reimbursement from the state for the families who are eligible for care. And that's turning into staff benefits, to salary increases, to a lot of the supports that you may not really think of as optional benefits for your companies are things that early childhood educators don't regularly have access to, like health insurance, like retirement savings plans. So it's been really incredible to see that deeper investment in the field. And in that first year, we've seen 1,000 new childcare spaces open across the state. 39 new family childcare homes. We are, like I said, seeing the wages increasing. And for the first time since we started measuring, we are seeing more programs open than close every quarter of this year. So incredible progress, incredible promise. Act 76 is not the full answer. We have not solved this problem entirely, but we are really excited about the impact it's having on Vermont families and on early childhood educators. And to color in a little bit more about the income eligibility, we just got some great new numbers from the state, thanks to Emily's team. And eligibility was increased in two stages, one in April and one in October. And this more recent phase was eligibility expanding from 400% of the federal poverty level to 575. And since that application process and that expansion opened on October 6th, we've seen 1,200 applications approved, new families enrolled in childcare financial assistance. So that's a pretty significant number for a state of our size. And of course, that builds on the number of families who were eligible in April as well. And we expect that to continue to grow as more families are submitting the paperwork, learning about the program. And that's where we see a lot of opportunity to be working closely with the HR community, because a lot of families don't know about this. They don't know that they may have access to tuition support or support in finding the childcare that they need. And you're an incredible conduit to sharing that information and making sure families have what they need to support their families to stay in the workforce and to help support your businesses succeed. So Luann, I've been just talking for a while, would love to pause and just have you share a couple of stories of the expansion and progress we've seen from Act 76.
First of all, thank you for letting us join you today. We are so excited. And as Hannah said, we do believe that you all are the connection to many families who don't know that this would apply to them. Historically, CCFAP has been for very low income families. Vermont is changing that with Act 76. And so we're very excited to help people understand the benefit of being an employee working in Vermont. So a couple of things that we have seen already, in addition to what Hannah has already mentioned, which is so many more folks families having access to some sort of support to pay the high cost of childcare. At this one story, for instance, before I move on to the childcare program side of it, just one quick family story was that we recently heard from a parent, two-income family parent who knew they did not qualify in the past. I believe two children in childcare, recently applied and is saving thousands of dollars a month in their childcare bill. It was quite astounding for the parent to have this experience. And she shared that story with us. So families are saving money, enabling them to have access to quality childcare, and also, buy groceries and save for the future, things like that, that we know young families also are trying to do. At the same time, as I talk to childcare businesses across the state, the money that comes in from tuition for childcare, whether it be paid by a parent or through the Childcare Financial Assistance Program, goes into childcare businesses where sometimes up to 80 and 90% of the budget goes directly to staff salaries. The key of quality services for young families, for families with young children, is experienced, trained workforce. And so as the reimbursement rate from the state has gone more toward the cost of care as opposed to what the market rate that was established, as the reimbursement rate has gone up and more families are eligible for assistance, that income that's going into childcare businesses, whether they are family childcare businesses or center-based programs, goes directly to compensation of the staff. And we're hearing stories of less turnover. We know that people want to work in this field, and we know that they often have to make the difficult decision not to because of the low compensation. We're hearing differences. We're hearing that there are raises in compensation. We're hearing that people are looking into including benefits for their employees. So we, as Hannah said, we're seeing immediate impact. As soon as this new law went into effect, we started to immediately see some impact from it. One of the quick things I'll say before I hand it back to Hannah is that family childcare has been a recipient of a lot of the benefits, because in the past, for some reason, it was determined that the setting that the child was cared for was related to how much that that provider should receive in reimbursement rate. And what the state has done is gotten rid of that differential, so that regardless of whether you are a family-based program or a center-based program, the reimbursement rate you're getting is the same. And that was a huge boost for family childcare, who, as you probably know, in the state of Vermont is very important due to the rural nature of our state and how in many communities, family childcare is the way to go to support families. So a lot of exciting news. As Hannah said, we're not quite there yet. There's more to be done, but we are the first in the nation, as we like to say, to address it in this way, and it's quite exciting.
So before we dive into how we can support you in sharing this information with your teams, now I just want to pause and take a minute to recognize the role that business played in passing Act 76. It truly wouldn't have happened without business champions writing op-eds, testifying at the State House, saying that this is a problem for businesses and for the economy, not just for families. And so that ability for us to help make the connection for legislators that this is an economic imperative as much as a moral one was really, really critical. And we will continue to count on businesses to share stories of impact, to talk about why childcare is a top priority for Vermonters. So we had about 330 employers who endorsed the campaign, and a smaller cohort who were in committee hearings, sharing stories of their employees, elevating voices of folks who may not have access to being in the State House building, and really when our CEO, Allie Richards, talks about the success of this movement, the first thing she talks about is the roles business plays. So we're excited to continue those relationships, but also to make sure that in turn you all have what you need to benefit from this legislation. And Luann is an incredible historian of childcare and the evolution of this movement in Vermont and beyond. So she's going to share just a little bit about the evolving role of employers.
Thanks, Hannah. Yes, at Let's Grow Kids, folks roll their eyes as Luann starts talking about the history, but I've done this work for a very long time in our state. And it is such, I'm so grateful to Vermont businesses, employers for getting on board with this issue the way that they have. I will tell you that finding and keeping and paying for childcare is not a new issue for Vermont families. Historically, finding childcare, keeping childcare, paying for childcare, and figuring out what to do when your child is sick has been an issue in Vermont for employees and has always been the sole responsibility of that employee to deal with silently. And as we talked many years ago, when we started talking to employers, they would say, I've never heard of this issue. I didn't know it was a problem. And as we worked with them to go back to their employees and ask what the situation was, we started to uncover that the issue was that employees knew that they had to deal with it themselves, often struggling, often making choices to call in sick, to find someone to care for a child that wasn't comfortable for them. All kinds of issues that really just weren't depended on a family dealing with the issue themselves, often a mother, a woman dealing with the issue herself, missing time at work, losing jobs, and just a whole myriad of issues that happen. So it's not a new issue. What is new is that over the last decade or so, employers have realized it is an issue for Vermont employers. And one of the things we always like to think about is even if you are an employee and you don't have young children, you are impacted by this childcare issue. Because if the person sitting to your right or to your left doesn't show up because they cannot access childcare, that impacts you as an employee and as an employer. So it's not a new problem. What's new is Vermont and Vermont employers have decided to deal with it in a way that really strengthens Vermont communities and making Vermont a great place to work.
I want to talk a little bit about the return on investment because, as you mentioned, as I'm sure you all know well, this policy is funded in part through 0.44% payroll tax, the child care contribution that can be split between the employer and employee. So individual employees are not paying more than 0.11% of their income to the payroll tax. Some employers are choosing to cover the full 0.44%. And this really is a smart investment, and smart investments have smart returns. And so we spent a lot of time doing economic research to understand really what the return on investment is. And, we can talk about the long-term impacts around mental health and schools, special education costs, some of these bigger societal changes. But what we're really seeing in the more immediate term is that it's putting thousands of Vermont parents on the workforce bench back into the workforce. Folks are no longer in the same way wrestling with the decision of leaving the labor force, like Luann said, mostly mothers, because there is an option to keep children in childcare that is affordable and the math is working for families in a different way. And we're seeing this really have the potential to boost our economy by millions as parents are entering or re-entering the workforce. Businesses are better able to hire the workforce they need to grow and expand. And of course, this is not an overnight change, but we are seeing more stories as folks are getting enrolled where they're able to make the best decisions for their careers and for their families. at the same time, which is really extraordinary. So I'm going to share a video of one of our childcare championship businesses, Mama Va. We had an event down at their manufacturing plant in Springfield a few weeks back. And this is their CFO, Brian Wanup, talking a little bit about how this program is working for them. So someone shout if the audio doesn't work. We should be good though.
Tax is paying, in a year about $20,000 for this new payroll tax, right? If you do that as a comparison to our annual revenue, it's less than like 0.1% of our annual revenue. Yeah. And you think about it, it's like $20,000 per year so that we can hire people more easily or extend childcare hours, and daycare so that our employees don't have to rush out the door at 4:30 because it closes at 4:45 or whatever, right? Like, it's kind of a no-brainer for a company of our size.
It's a brilliant funding mechanism because we're the ones who benefit.
Yes.
So exactly. Of course businesses should be contributing. Like, it's just a no-brainer.
We're hearing a lot more of these stories. This was a really wonderful panel.
There
we go. With a couple of their employees as well, sharing their individual family story and how they're already able to make better choices for their family to meet their schedules, meet their older children's needs. So really excited to see this return on investment continue to grow. And welcome you to share stories from your businesses as well as you're starting to hear from employees or feel the impact of this change happening. That really helps us ensure effective implementation and also share impact with the policymakers who made this work possible. And really the best thing that you all can be doing to support your employees in this work is sharing the resources around Act 76, making sure families know that this is possible. And the childcare contribution is a benefit for all employees. So including it in onboarding materials, helping new employees, but also your current employees understand what this really will mean in the short and long term for them. So we'll send out a PDF and like I said, the materials so that folks can access the webinar recording. But wanted to share a couple of useful links and talk through them before we open it up for specific Q&A. So the state and Emily's team, the Child Development Division, has some really incredible resources. They are managing the process of eligibility applications, supporting families in finding care, navigating there's an online and a paper application, and really implementing this policy change. So we've added a couple of the links here around understanding income and service eligibility, accessing the application, and you can see the breakdown of tuition costs based on income level, family size. We work closely with community childcare support agencies. There's one for every county, and they are a partner in providing kind of technical assistance for submitting that application, for finding childcare. Another great resource is Vermont Childcare Links, which has a list of programs with open spaces that you can search by community, so that we recognize that affordability is a big part of the problem, but access to spaces is another. And I can speak from my own experience. We were on childcare waiting lists before we were telling our families that we were pregnant with our first son. I'm actually due in 3 weeks with our second, and once again, the front office at the Greater Burlington YMCA knew my secret long before anyone else did. And we're very fortunate to have access to quality care, but that's a really challenging thing for someone who is moving to Vermont for a job and may not know how challenging it is to find things like childcare, housing, or just isn't as tied into the system. I mean, our CEO, it took her 11 months to find childcare for her twins, and she spent the last decade making this her everyday job. So the more that we can get resources to families and get them to families in advance and not make assumptions about who may need help with this, the better we can be supporting all Vermont families. And then I would be remiss if I didn't share some opportunities to get involved, because we are still doing this work. It is not yet done. And our success is dependent on the involvement of Vermonters and their willingness to share their stories. So lots of great ways to join the campaign, to become advocates and continue to do this work together. We are committed to continuing to work towards that goal of access, affordability, and quality, where no family is paying more than 10%. Every family has access to the care that meets their needs in their communities, and early educators are recognized as essential workers in an incredibly valuable, skilled profession, and are compensated as such. So with that, I'll stop sharing and we can spend some time on Q&A.
So if folks have questions, feel free to just take yourself off mute and, shout it out. Or if you are not comfortable doing that, we're happy to take questions in the chat as well, and I'll keep an eye on that.
And I'll just say again, Emily is the expert in this, so definitely ask questions while you have her on the line.
Hi, I have a quick question. This is Ashwini. I work with InvestEAP. And I was wondering if you have like just a small one pager or something for employers that they could share out about the eligibility. And then the other question I had is just personally, I was able to apply this October for the income when the income eligibility increased. And I saw on there was some kind of integration with like VSAC contributions. So I don't know if that's something that's relevant or if that could be explained a little bit more, because I felt like maybe that helped to increase eligibility, even if you didn't quite meet the income, like if you were contributing in some way to that. So I don't know if that could be explained a little bit more, and also how we could message that to employers so they can share with folks.
Yeah, both great questions that I can answer. So the one pager, we are in the process of working with a marketing firm to update all of our materials. We were hoping to have everything updated by now, but we're hoping within the next few weeks to have everything ready to go. And I'd be more than happy to share with this group so that it's material that you can share with employers. And then for the VSAC contributions, so eligibility is based on gross monthly income. The only two things we allow for to reduce income are child support paid to another household or contributions to a Vermont higher education qualified account. So a 529 savings account, contributions to those accounts can help reduce the gross monthly income for applicants. And the question is on the application, but I think that's an area that we can explain a little bit more, that this is something that will actually reduce income. It will reduce income for eligibility purposes for childcare financial assistance.
Okay. And is there any kind of limit to that? Like if you're putting $20 a month versus $500 a month, because I think that could really significantly impact eligibility while also helping people meet that goal. Because I know for me, it's like the struggle of I can't save for my kids' college because daycare costs so much that it kind of almost like, I feel like it's a good messaging point, because it helps to say that actually it allows you to save on childcare and contribute. So if your eligibility is just above that, income bracket, and you start putting more towards college, you could see a big benefit. So
yeah, there's no cap on how much can be contributed. Yeah, because we know that different income levels have different availability of being able to make those contributions. So there's no limit to how much can be directed to the 529 account. We just ask for verification of what's being contributed
Okay.
as part of the application.
Okay.
Well, and what a way, what a way to impact one of our goals, which is that helping families be able to invest in the future. And so I'm so glad you brought this piece up. Thank you for bringing this up. And as Hannah put in the chat, in the interim, as the Child Development Vision works on their marketing resources, Let's Grow Kids has a one-pager that I think, Hannah, didn't you just put the link in the chat? So
I did, yeah.
Thank you so much.
So Hannah, if folks have questions after the fact that they think of after we wrap, is it okay for people to reach out with questions to you or Emily or Luann?
Yeah, absolutely. My time is a bit limited before maternity leave. But if stuff comes up this week, probably next, I am accessible. I've got my contact information, and it's in the deck as well. And Emily, how do you best want to manage any incoming questions to CDD?
Yeah, emailing me is generally the best way to contact me. And certainly if it's something that a discussion would be helpful for, I'm happy to also have a phone call, but email is probably the best way to reach out, and I can usually answer questions pretty quickly.
one of the things that is happening right now is the support and the partnership between the Child Development Division and folks helping people find childcare and families has just been amazing recently. So Emily, if I could just call that out right here, thank you, because you all have been so responsive in these changes, during these changes, and I know you're dealing with a lot. So thank you for that. Yes, and my time is not limited, unlike Hannah, so feel free to reach out. Sometimes at Let's Grow Kids, if we don't have the answer to the question, we can get you to the right person. So feel free to reach out.
Just a second, I'll have all three of our emails listed. Does anyone have stories of Act 76 access from their teams that they'd be willing to share while we're all on together?
Oh, nice.
I know some people have put it in the chat, but just thank you personally and professionally, you know, for all the work that you have been doing for years to make this happen.
And thank you. We couldn't do it without Vermonters doing it alongside us. It's been a privilege to get to be a part of this movement, and having to spend a couple of weeks traveling to other states, sharing what Vermont has done and how it worked for us. The ripple effects beyond our state's borders are really incredible. It's really exciting to see how what we've learned and what we've accomplished will support other states in doing similar work.
No one has any other questions. I guess we can give folks back some time in their morning.
Yeah.
We'll circulate the slide deck. And if anyone is interested in receiving the recording, I'm happy to share that. I won't attach it as an initial matter just because it's a huge thing to send out and I don't want to clutter up anyone's inbox. But thank you all very much. And thank you, Luann, Hannah, and Emily, for your time this morning. This was really wonderful and really helpful. And it's great to know the work that has been done and is continuing to be done to support access to childcare in Vermont. So if folks have questions, feel free to reach out. And if not, hopefully we see some or all of you in December at the Mixer at the Rutland Country Club. And I hope everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving next week.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a great day.